Welcome to the Minute of Terror channel. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment where you are watching this video from. My name is Michael Carter, 40 years old today, but I carry memories that never fade. I live in Dallas, a big city full of movement, but what I will tell happened when I was 13 at the end of 1998, out in the countryside of Arkansas, on a farm lost between Hope and Camden, about 420 kilometers from Little Rock. We lived by favor in a simple brick house, walls whitewashed, window painted light blue, surrounded by thick brush that seemed to swallow everything around. The dirt floor creaked under our feet, and the smell of wet earth mixed with the scent of wildflowers. My father, Mr. Antonio Bento, and I made a living from a small patch behind the house. Every day we crossed a narrow trail, cutting through the woods to get there. It was cool, quiet, only birds, crickets, and sometimes the snap of a branch broken by armadillo or rabbit. The nearest neighbor was about 16 kilometers down a dirt road. We called him Mr. Samuel, but his given name was Leo Cadillo, a dairy cowboy. He lived alone since his wife died of fever. A man of few words, stern face, bulging eyes that seemed to pierce the soul. My mother, Mrs. Rosa, very Catholic, always said he dealt with heavy stuff, spells, witchcraft. My father laughed, said he was just a quiet man from grief, but I always felt a chill when crossing that gaze. One Friday in November, the farm owner, Mr. Ottaviano, invited the whole family to his daughter's 18th birthday. It would be the first big party of my life, with music, plenty of food, and people from all around. I spent the day counting minutes to finish work. When the sun began to drop, around 6 in the evening, we put away the hose and walked back along the trail. That was when the air changed. It grew heavy, thick, like someone had lit wet sulfur. My father stopped and asked low, "Did you feel that, son?" I answered yes, throat dry. Suddenly came a horrible stench of carrion mixed with rotten egg and burnt metal. Before we spoke, we heard a deep noise, half wild hog, half dog growling. My father pulled me behind him. That was when the thing came out of the tall grass. It was tall, thin, hunched, covered in patchy black hair. The head looked like a deformed dog, long snout, teeth like fangs sticking out, huge, drooping ears. When I looked into its eyes, my blood froze. They were exactly like Mr. Samuel's, that dead stare, only glowing red in the dark. I screamed so loud the creature stepped back. My father pulled the machete from his belt and shouted, "Back off, evil thing. Come close, and I will cut you to pieces." The beast let out a hoarse growl, a sound like barking mixed with gargle, and rushed into the woods, leaving behind a trail of unbearable stench. My father carried me and ran to the house. We arrived sweating, locked doors and windows, told everything to my mother. She only made the sign of the cross several times and said, "I always said that man was no good." That night we did not go to the party. The silence inside the house felt heavier than the noise of the creature. Next day, we went to the ranch to tell Mr. Ottaviano. He listened in silence, eyes fixed on the ground, and said, "Then Samuel went back to what he used to do." He explained no more. For days later, Mr. Samuel vanished from the area. He left with the clothes on his back, even left the horse in the pen. No one ever heard of him again. To this day, I do not know if it was Mr. Samuel transformed or if it was something else wearing his face. I only know I never walked that trail alone again, not even in daylight. When I drive past that place, I feel the same weight in my chest, and that foul smell creeps back into memory. Years went by, but the memory did not fade. Sometimes when I'm alone, I think of what might have happened if my father had not held the machete. I also think of the stories the elders told about men turning into beasts, werewolves, wandering souls haunting the woods. Maybe it was superstition, maybe it was truth. What I saw that night does not fit into simple explanation. Now, as an adult, I understand that certain memories become scars. That red stare, just like Mr. Samuel's, follows me like a shadow. No matter how many cities I visit, how many people I meet, I always carry with me the heavy silence of the woods and the stench of decay that came before the apparition. Good night, and beware when the woods grow too quiet, because sometimes silence is not peace, it is warning. My name is Diego Harris. I am 39 today and live in Austin, but this story is not mine. It belongs to my mother, Mrs. Yvette. She told it so many times that I know it by heart. It happened almost 50 years ago, around 1976, in northern Texas, in a small place called St. Dominic Creek, near Waco. My grandparents were Mr. Raymond, known as Ray from the Marsh, and my grandmother, Anna Lucy Annie. They had just welcomed their first daughter, my Aunt Rosalind Rose, born at home with a midwife. The oldest midwife in town, Mrs. Zena, wrapped the baby in cloth and warned firmly. Raymond baptized this child as soon as possible in church, because a werewolf is roaming around here. My grandfather, a stubborn man, laughed in her face, took a shot of whiskey, and said that if such a beast showed up, he would fill it with bullets and finish it off with his machete. A week later, close to Holy Thursday, he got a job in a charcoal yard, and the family moved to a hut of straw and clay in the middle of the brush. My grandfather raised 4 fierce dogs to guard the yard. That Thursday night, with a full moon shining like a beacon, he decided to go hunt armadillo and raccoon. My grandmother cried, begged him to stay, that it was Holy Week. He answered, "Stop with the tales, woman. I will go to the edge of the ravine and be right back." He took the double-barrel shotgun that had belonged to my great-grandfather, climbed an old oak, and waited. As soon as he settled, that horrible smell of rot mixed with sulfur came. Branches began to snap heavy. When the thing appeared, my grandfather saw the body of a tall man, all covered in black hair, head of a huge wolf, eyes red like burning coals, giant paws with black claws. The beast sniffed the air, looked up, and in one leap climbed half the trunk. My grandfather fired the first shot. It grazed the side. The creature let out a howl that made the buzzards fly away and ran down. My grandfather jumped from the tree and ran to the hut. He arrived pale as lime, told my grandmother to put out the lantern. The dogs began to whine as if beaten. Suddenly the wall of cane cracked. The door flew. The thing tried to enter, tearing everything with its claws. My grandfather pressed the shotgun to the gap and fired the second shot. This time it hit the chest. The beast roared, shaking the ground, turned its back, and vanished into the dark, leaving a trail of thick blood. They spent the whole night praying. My grandmother with Rose pressed her chest. My grandfather sitting in the middle of the hut with the shotgun on his lap and the rosary in his hand. At dawn, he went out with 3 co-workers from the charcoal yard to track the beast. They walked miles, only found a blood trail that stopped suddenly in the middle of nowhere, as if the creature had been pulled to the sky or swallowed by the earth. Days later, my grandmother visited her friend, Mrs. Nilza. She found her crying. Her husband, Mr. Gerald Armadillo, had disappeared since Holy Thursday. He went out to cut wood and never returned. My grandmother told everything. When she repeated it to my grandfather, he only whispered, "It was him, Annie. It was Gerald. Now he must be paying in eternal fire." My grandmother rushed and baptized Rose in the first Mass after Easter. My grandfather never again went hunting during Holy Week. He lit candles every Good Friday and prayed litanies. With time, the story became a warning. In St. Dominic Creek, people learned to lock the door early when the moon grew too full and the brush too quiet. My mother always ends the same way. It was for Ray to learn to respect what has no explanation. I believe every word because my grandparents were serious people who never invented tales. And when the moon lights the brush and silence weighs, I too feel that there are things that do not belong to the world of men. Good night, and beware of what roams in the darkness. My name is Luke. I am 26 today, but the story I will tell is not mine. It belongs to my mother, Rose. She was about 17 back then. Now she is 56, and whenever this subject comes up, which is rare, she speaks in a low voice, eyes fixed on a point no one else sees, as if she still felt the rotten smell in the air. At that time, the family lived in a place called Old Corral Farm, out near Tyler in East Texas. It was so remote that cell service never reached, and electricity only came when St. Peter was in a good mood. The settlement had about 15 houses scattered, brush thick on both sides of the dirt road, and a darkness at night so heavy it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Everyone knew the man called Damien. Behind his back, they called him Crazy Damien. He was thin, sunburned, always barefoot, nails black with dirt, scratches on his body that never healed. He lived in a small clay shack almost falling down at the end of the trail. No one ever saw him buy anything at the store except molasses and cheap whiskey. People whispered that he turned into a werewolf on full moon Fridays, but no one dared to prove it. It was only talk in hushed voices. My mother loved going to the dances at my father's house, who at that time was king of the two-step, those country parties of the 80s where folks still dance close. That night my grandmother, Mrs. Lourdes, asked her not to go. She said she had dreamed of a black dog circling the house and woke with her heart tight. My mother, stubborn as ever, answered that a dream was only a dream and left. She left the party around 3 in the morning, alone, walking. The road was a line of red dirt cutting through the brush. No lights, no posts. Only one huge tree, an old sycamore planted right in the middle of the path, the only landmark. When she got near the tree, she saw from afar a figure standing still. It looked like a dog, but too big, dark bluish, sitting in the middle of the road, staring at her. The eyes were two burning coals, red, glowing in the dark. The smell was carrying something dead for days. My mother says her body froze, but she did not turn back. She crossed to the other side slowly, never taking her eyes off the beast. It did not growl, did not move, did not advance. Only turned its head, following her until she vanished around the bend. When she reached home, trembling, she told my grandmother, who gave her sugar water and made her pray the creed backwards 3 times. After that night, Damien disappeared. His shack stayed closed for 5 weeks. No one saw him leave, no wagon sounds, nothing. When he returned, he was worse, more wounded, deep cuts on arms and chest, as if he had fought a cougar. He spoke even less, only glared sideways at passersby. Years later, when my youngest aunt was born, the same beast appeared at my paternal grandparents' house. My father, who was 10, remembers waking to scratches on the wooden door and a growl so deep it shook the floor. My grandfather grabbed the machete and flung the door open, but only caught sight of a black shadow leaping over the fence and vanishing into the cane field. Time passed, and the mystery grew. Some neighbors swore they saw shadows running through the trails. Others said they heard long howls coming from the ravine. Children were forbidden to play far after sunset. Even the most skeptical avoided going out at night. Damien was found dead about 7 years later, near the creek that runs through the farm. He was naked, covered in bite and claw marks, as if something much larger had destroyed him. The townsfolk said it was another werewolf that caught him off guard in beast form. Others believed he had lost the fight against his own curse. My mother never again walked past that sycamore alone. Even today, if she sees a big black dog on the street, she freezes, turns pale, and crosses away. And whenever I hear a dog howl far off in the night, feel a chill I cannot explain. It is not exactly fear. It is as if something inside me recognizes that red stare my mother faced. Because the worst was not the beast chasing her. The worst was that it let her pass, as if saying, I know you. Not tonight, but I know who you are. And we never know if it spared her out of pity or because it still had something kept for later. The silence of the farm remains heavy on full moon nights. Those who live there still lock doors early, light candles, and pray strong. And I, even living far away, carry the memory of this story. No matter how many years pass, whenever I think of it, I feel the same cold in my chest. Good night, and beware of what roams in the darkness. Hey everybody, my name is Lucy. I'm 39, and I live in Chula Vista, but this story isn't mine. It's my great-aunt Noosa's. She's the younger sister of my maternal grandma. She was about 16 or 17 when it happened back around 1964-1965 in the little mountain town of San Benito up in the Sierra Madre Oriental, where the wind slices you and the fog swallows everything whole. The town was tiny, maybe 30 adobe, and what houses no electricity, just kerosene lanterns and candles. Everybody knew everybody by name and nickname. There was this neighbor folks called Miss Herlinda. She lived in a faded blue house at the end of the dirt road. Skinny lady, always wearing a shawl, real quiet. She said she lived with her husband and a little boy, but nobody ever laid eyes on either of them. Whenever anyone asked, she said her husband was real, sick, stayed locked up, and the kid was super weak, hardly ever went out. Windows always boarded up thick, curtains never moved, and every once in a while the wind carried this weird smell from the house, kind of sweet, kind of rotten. One night my Aunt Noosa had to take a jar of dulce de leche to the godmother who lived on the other side of town. She left around 9:30, 10 o'clock, holding a kerosene lantern because the street was pitch black. On the way back, when she passed Miss Herlinda's house, she got this chill that wasn't from the cold. The crickets shut up all at once. The air got heavy like someone dropped a wet blanket on her. That's when she heard a dry scraping sound from the backyard, like something big dragging itself through the banana trees. She pointed the lantern, and between the trunks, she saw this tall, hairy figure body, kind of human, but with a long snout, pointed ears, and eyes glowing red like hot coals. The thing was crouched, staring straight at her. My aunt said her heart stopped. The lantern shook in her hand, the light danced, and the creature stayed still, just breathing deep this low growl that seemed to come from its chest and from the ground at the same time. She dropped the lantern and ran, screaming all the way home. My great-grandma thought it was fever imagination, but my aunt swore on her deathbed she saw what she saw. Next day, my great-grandpa went to Miss Herlinda's to ask if everything was okay. She opened the door, just a crack pale and nervous, saying she hadn't heard a thing, nobody had gone out, probably just a stray dog. But her voice was shaking. After that, the whole town started noticing weird stuff. Cows showed up dead in the pasture, necks twisted, bites nobody recognized. Goats vanished, and they only found clean bones. At night, they heard howls that weren't dog, or coyote, deeper, more mournful. Huge clawed prints appeared in the mud after rain, but disappeared by noon like the sun burned the evidence. Years later, my grandma saw Miss Herlinda in the middle of the night at the old cemetery, kneeling at an unmarked grave, placing black flowers and whispering to something nobody else could see. When Grandma called her name, she jumped up, hid whatever she had in her apron, and practically ran away, looking back the whole time. Nobody ever saw the husband's or the boy's face. When Miss Herlinda died about 10 years later, they finally opened the house. There was a room padlocked from the inside wall, scratch floor to ceiling, deep claw marks in the wood, and a stench of animal, so bad the men who went in threw up on the spot. The coffin left closed, nobody held a wake, and the county truck hauled everything away the same day. My Aunt Noosa never walked past that house again. Whenever she told a story, her voice got hoarse, her eyes filled with tears, and she always ended with the same line, "I know what I saw." That wasn't a dog, wasn't a person, wasn't anything God made, right? And even now, when the family gets together and someone begs her to tell it, she makes the sign of the cross, 3 times looks around, and whispers some things you're not supposed to mess with. Some neighbors smile by day and howl by night, and some doors are better left locked forever. In a little settlement of San Juan de los Patos, tucked back in the dry hills of the Texas Hill Country, lived an old rancher named Mr. Amos Vickers. 74 years old, widower, skinny but still tough as nails. He was up every morning at 4:30, milking his 3 cows, feeding the chickens, hoeing the corn patch, and come afternoon he'd sit on the porch facing the dirt road, sipping fresh perked coffee. Folks knew Amos had the gift. He could call rain, sickness, even somebody else's passing. When he said something was coming, it came. One Monday in September of '88, Amos woke up wrong. He paced the yard restless, like a dog smelling thunder. His buddy Joe Mack, who stopped by every day for a little front porch talk, could tell something was off. "What's eating you, Amos? You look like you've seen a haint." "Worse than that, Joe. I dreamed I was right here on the porch drinking coffee when a rider all in black showed up on a shiny black horse. He stopped at the gate, looked me dead in the eye, and said he'd come to get me. I wasn't scared. Felt like it was time. I stood up, set my cup down, and went with him. We rode up the back hill, and from the top, I could see the whole place, the house, you pulling in, but I couldn't come back down." Joe laughed it off, said it was just a bad dream, but Amos didn't laugh. That whole week, he got everything squared away. Land papers in order, burial clothes laid out, an old debt to Mr. Chucho paid off. Even went to Sunday Mass for the first time in 10 years, confessed, took communion, and asked forgiveness from anybody he'd wronged. Next Monday, Joe Mack showed up right on time. Found Amos sitting on the porch, cup in hand, staring hard at the gate. Day was bright, but the ranch too quiet. No birds, nothing. They talked corn prices, the drought coming on strong, but Amos never took his eyes off the empty road. Then both of them heard it. Clop, 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 clop. Hooves on hard-packed dirt, slow and steady, coming closer. Joe looked and saw nothing. Amos stood up slow, calm smile on his face. "He's here, Joe." "Who's here, man?" "Ain't nobody coming. The fella from my dream, waiting at the gate." Joe's heart squeezed tight because now the hoofbeats were close, damn near in the yard, but the road stayed empty. Amos set his cup down, just like in the dream, straightened his straw hat, and started walking toward the gate. With every step, he got lighter, clearer, like the sun was shining straight through him. When he reached the gate post, he stopped, turned back to Joe, and raised a hand. "Look after my stock till the family gets here, all right? Thanks for everything, Joe Mack." And he was gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. The hoofbeats quit cold. Joe ran to the gate, looked every direction, nothing. No dust, no tracks. He ran back to the porch, and there was Amos still in his chair, cup in hand, chin on his chest. Dead. Little smile on his lips, face of a man who just met somebody he'd been waiting on a long time. County doc said heart attack. Joe never told a soul what he really saw. At the wake, folks kept saying how peaceful the old man looked. Only Joe knew why. Ever since that day, every Monday at the same time in the afternoon, you can hear the hooves again on the road out front. Clop, 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 clop. Faster now, like the job's done and he's moving on. Nobody's ever seen a rider again, but everybody respects the hour. They say it's death making his rounds. And when he sets a time with you, you feel it coming, get the house in order, and go without kicking. Amos was laid to rest in the church cemetery. On the stone, they put the line he picked out himself the week before. "I got here right on time." And to this day, when somebody asks Joe Mack if that hoofbeat sound still spooks him, he says no. Being scared is for folks who ain't ready. Amos was ready. He saw death ride up and open the gate for him.